We're still waiting on one more person, one more board member in person. So we'll get started in just a minute. Let's see, Lee is on. Hi, Lee.
Hi,
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
morning.
No worries, no worries.
Okay.
Sorry, Lee, thanks for waiting.
I could see you all were talking and I just wasn't sure.
We hadn't actually started
Yeah,
yet.
so we can
Call it.
call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Yes, and first item is the approval of the minutes from August 13th. Were there any comments on those? Obviously, I wasn't here, but I did read through them. I didn't
I would,
see any.
I would recommend we approve our minutes from our August 13th meeting.
Okay, I'll second that motion. And so since Lee's separate roll call, so Lee, any comments from you first?
No, I'm in favor.
Okay, Ginger? Aye. Bill?
Yeah.
And audio, yes. Okay. Passed, approved unanimously, and then, public input.
I think, Bud, if I could take a moment before we start our business to introduce new graduate fellow, Madison Luna. She's a graduate student at the O'Neill School, and she's just starting with us for a 2-year fellowship in our stormwater program.
Wonderful.
The board, can you go on quickly, maybe introduce yourselves?
Yes, yes. Bob Audio, president of the Drainage Board, geologist by training and inclination. I'm now building weather stations for Purdue.
And I'm Bill Riggers. I've been on the drainage board for many years and I'm a civil engineer here in town.
Ginger Davis, also geologist. I actually work at Indiana Geological and Water Survey on campus. Yeah, longtime conservationist and stormwater specialist.
And we've met with Sean and Randolph. Thanks, survey. Nice to have you.
You're welcome to stick around if you like, or you're welcome to get back and work on things, but thank you.
Well, that's quite a long internship. really.
Yeah, 2 years.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole length of my program.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
Do you have any vision of what you hope to accomplish?
I guess just get more insight into how government works.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, you know, yes.
And you can choose to stick around in the summers if you'd like, or some other fellows have gone on for other internships over the summer and just returned for the semester work. Either way,
Uh-huh.
lots of opportunities.
And are you having to do anything particular in stormwater or in focused areas?
Just started,
Okay.
but I started on, climate resiliency plan.
Yes,
Projects.
starting on that. I'm partnering with one of the other interns that's in the planning department, Megan, and we're working on a climate resiliency plan. So kind of fixing up some things, working on the implementation matrix,
Mhm.
kind of working on deliverable goals.
Good. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Everything's green. So first item on the agenda is site plan for a daycare facility.
Thanks, got her cat. I haven't seen. Lee's cat is.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. That should be nothing wrong with that. I'm pretty nice here. Okay. It's not loading, but yeah.
I was pulling up the packet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, their search engine.
This search.
You should use the data viewer parcel and we search through address points, a number of different things. I actually do that because sometimes it doesn't come up.
Is there a link to the Beacon site on your GIS webpage?
Oh, the new Beacon
Yeah.
site, that's demo.
Demo
It's
only?
not-
Okay.
yeah. If you go to the Monroe County thing, let's see, we'll, and go to
Sean
Geo.
gave me Beacon stuff. Can I use that on public meeting yet? If it's still demo phase?
They said they used it already, so,
Well, yeah, I use it at my desk, but
yeah.
are you okay with me putting it up on?
They didn't give us any specification like that, so I wouldn't,
Okay,
that wasn't a question I guess we ran by.
okay.
We made the announcement, so,
Mhm.
seems a little cryptic, so, or a little ambiguous over here, so.
So we're changing,
So, yeah, Schneider,
bought out,
has Beacon bought, Elevate,
yeah.
and they're migrating Elevate to Beacon. Right now, we have Elevate up. We informed the commissioners and kind of made it known in the county, we have a demo site that we're gonna make sure we continue to improve. So here's a sneak peek.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
it's not gonna stir anything up. It's just, right now, we're trying to make sure it's user friendly and, you know, all that good stuff. Just wait until it's launched and we get over 100 calls the first couple of days. Maybe. Yeah.
Yep.
So we have some efforts. We're gonna reach out and attempt to offer educational opportunities like to users. Certain
So we can go as
stakeholders.
fast as Kelsey.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how fast Kelsey is.
Sometimes I stumble.
I'm going to be watching. No.
All right. Thanks, Sean, for sharing the link for us. So this is, like I said, a site plan for a small daycare facility. We're located on the south side of Bloomington, just outside city limits on the south side of Gore Road. This is within the Clear Creek critical drainage area. So zooming in here, South Walnut Street Pike, Gore Road. So this property, I've got Chelsea Moss here who can explain the project in more detail, but it was formerly a residence that they turned into a daycare facility. Now they're doing a new site plan, new improvements on the property to expand parking. They'll be in the future adding a playground and some other things on this small parcel here. So they're proposing a detention area on the south side. As far as drainage goes, my main concern is that we don't have a great place to outlet it at the corner of the property here. We have single family residential all around it, and the nearest drainage easement is in this area here. The subdivision to the south does not have a drainage easement on the property for this to discharge to. So that was my main kind of difficulty with this, but everything else is really straightforward.
Just one property over there seems to be some sort of easement as well. Is that a utility easement?
Yeah.
So
That might be
you
a
see what I'm looking at?
property, and maybe actual easement to get back to the lot behind.
That's what I think, so. Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't see an easement
Yeah,
there.
there's not any, there are not any drainage easements anywhere on any of those properties.
Mhm.
So historically, this was built as a home. It was used as a daycare facility for quite a while. In fact, it still has all the playgrounds and stuff from that. My understanding is it either sat vacant or was used as a home for just a few years, which triggered planning to say they had to re-get their conditional use and bring everything up to the current standards, so that my clients had kind of anticipated, we're buying a daycare facility, we can go in a daycare facility. We're trying to bring everything up to snuff. That meant we had to double the parking, to meet planning requirements, so it's not actually a requirement of my client, to be honest. They don't need the extra parking, but we, have to bring it up to planning standards. And and then what's going to happen down the line is they are redoing the playgrounds. My initial understanding and talking with them, this playground's lots of mulch, not big changes. Because they are making the entire facility accessible, though, they do have accessible paths, which are going to be solid surface going in. That, in talking with Kelsey, pushed us into needing to do the detention and such. The lot is 1.25 acres. And, so getting detention in there while still allowing for their, playground, very elaborate playground setup that they're putting in was extremely difficult. We also currently the parking lot drains to the east property line. Unfortunately, there is a sewer line along that never received an easement. So CBU is holding us up, in the fact that they're requiring an easement before they'll release anything. And therefore, we can't take any of our drainage along that east property line. That's how it currently drains.
Mhm.
And so we are having to route around the west side of the building. So that's, that's kind of the summary of what's going on there.
Thank you, Chelsea.
We are reducing, because of how the county views gravel, and it is a very old gravel lot, we are actually reducing our pavement surface because the concrete we're putting in is less square footage than the gravel we're taking out. There's existing 2 separate parking lots and 2 separate drives. We're not allowed to keep the 2 drives, and so we're consolidating that up front.
Okay, so you're routing your drainage around the building, the west side, and then to a small pond on the south side of the property.
Yeah, and that's, that is only at its absolute deepest, about 2 feet deep. That's for safety reasons, because we're gonna have lots of kids. I really can't take it any deeper.
Mhm.
And to take it deeper, we would have to build a berm, which is just gonna cause even more
Mhm.
safety concerns. So fairly limited. I think a little further in the packet is the, I think it's as part of the drainage report, is the playground schematic.
Oh,
What they're
okay.
looking at on that, if you wanna get an idea. They're in schematic phase drawing on that.
Sure.
Another consultant right
Oh,
there.
this, okay.
So that's gonna tweak a little bit, but essentially our pond will be between those 2 paths on the back part.
Okay.
Those will get reworked to accommodate the drainage.
The board members have questions?
So the pipe leading away from there, that's,
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's all draining the way it did before.
Yes, there's a little bit that was draining towards the west. That'll be going towards the east, but we maintained the runoff, peak discharges between pre and post. We were not able to meet the, sorry,
Standards.
yes, the
Critical
new
water
standards.
standards.
We weren't able to meet those, but we are not releasing any higher rates than currently are.
Is the board agreeable to waiving the critical watershed rates and allowing them to proceed with the design?
yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a very small drainage area
Mhm.
effectively, so.
One of the things I noticed in going through the new drainage standard is it makes a lot of sense for larger sites. But when you have something this small, 1.25 acres, there, in order to put in enough storage to have fully met those, would have taken out half the playground area and a lot. Just as something to consider moving forward with the new standard.
We've come across that before as well. The small sites always cause issues. So for this, I I don't want to, stop a daycare project by any means.
Yeah.
I feel like they've done quite a bit for drainage already with the impervious surface they've added. So I think it'll be a good improvement.
And, is there any way, I mean, I saw there was a schematic on the drawing of the pond. Is there any way to put some storage underneath there and the gravel fill or anything like that? That could. Oh, there is some there already.
There is.
Okay,
So that's
okay.
our treatment.
I tried my best to expand that as much as possible with it still being functional, because of where this needed to occur and where we need an outlet. It does not have an under drain in it, but the, soil survey is showing fairly percolating soils in that area.
Mhm.
I felt comfortable with not having a under drain in that. So I expanded that as much as I felt we could without just having a huge gravel pit in there.
It's not typically what we see, but yeah, I see the infiltration trench. I assume that was an underground, but I guess I didn't look closely enough.
Does it run around the perimeter, the outer,
Through the center of the,
oh, through the
yeah.
center?
I guess, is there any known cases of any water pooling up or anything like that? Or anything
There's
like that?
no evidence on site of water cooling in that area.
What about just living there, occupied? Have you been there during any of the rain events? that were
Been there
pretty
shortly after, and nothing was overly soggy
Oh.
or seemed to be holding excess water.
And their playground, that would be one area would get
So the playground,
soggy. but
yeah, so where they're putting, all of the new playground will have an under drain system for the material they're putting in
They
that.
rubberized.
And then, I think they're using more of a bark mulch material in their non-paved areas, that they have, I think, about 3 or 4 different surfacing types they're using. Anything that is impervious is getting an under drain, and with that design, we will have additional bioretention areas put in just for all of the new playgrounds. So there will be even more bioretention once they do that part. This was focused on getting because they're in a position where they need, it's a little bit of, they've got to get in there and get some cash flow going before they can then go back and do some of the playground, and that'll probably be phased. But I've already been in conversations, and I'll be working with them to size those bioretention areas as we work through the basis on the playgrounds.
So that would come through as a site plan amendment, so we would.
It'll either be a site plan amendment or it'll be a separate site plan depending on when that phasing happens and how
Okay.
planning wants to handle it timeline wise.
Regardless, any changes to this is gonna come across my desk, and I can bring it back to the drainage board if needed.
So Chelsea, do you know, the old, they have a playground there now, right?
Yeah,
Is it soggy or do they have any rain? Cause that would
I've
be,
not seen any
okay, so the
issues,
soil is perking.
Yeah,
Okay. And then, you know how we're not supposed to have an orifice smaller than 4 inch? So I'm just curious how the drainage calculations would have panned out if we had to do it to the restricted flow rates and
Yeah.
then have to bump up to a 4 inch and then where we are.
Right.
That's more out of curiosity. It might be a wash.
Yeah, on that outlet pipe, Chelsea, do you have any type of like orifice plate, or is it just a 12-inch opening?
apologize.
Was there on a detail sheet? Maybe Chelsea had them.
I don't think I had any work display on that. I will confirm.
Yeah, I mean, it may be the same issue. Having that smaller orifice. And I'd be concerned on having that with no underpoint.
Yeah.
Oh, and my concern is if there is outfall from the overdrain,
Mhm.
how it's gonna affect neighboring properties.
Yeah.
That's probably my only concern is
Mhm.
last thing I wanna do is cause a significant
Mhm.
area in an adjacent property that
Right,
then has standing water that never did before or something like that.
already envision the calls,
Yes.
yeah. So,
Well, but if it did it flow that direction? Look at Deckard's survey and just see what,
Yeah, I was wondering if you could put topography in there.
yeah, he doesn't have.
oh, it didn't have, okay.
We'll do that on his plot plans.
You can see the change in the drainage basins, on.
David, on your
Drainage report.
Your grading?
Yeah.
Shows?
So.
It's 46.
46?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so it's okay.
And, no.
Oops.
Is this one you were thinking?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, it's,
So we reduced basin A, which went to the west. By a bit, just because we had to route around. And because of the placement of that.
so that went
Basin.
southwest?
Yes.
Okay,
So the southeast then gets a little larger.
Mhm.
But we were talking 2 acres.
and it flows southeast, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
so we have an additional 0.2 acres going southeast.
That's right. Is it toward the house or is it toward that?
It's toward, it basically flows to the corners on both sides. Everything drains to the property corners. Which in turn drains to kind of across that southeast block.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious if it goes.
Where are the contours? There, okay, got it, sorry.
Pay for that there.
Okay, okay, so. So we're going,
Yep, down.
and just goes through the rear yards. Yeah, this is what I first saw when I was really concerned about this, because this property owner here is going to get the drainage from the pond. They have a fence, there's no easement. So I don't have a current solution
Yeah.
to get to this drainage here across these properties.
Has there been any thought or discussion with talking with the adjoining neighbor to kind of figure
You
out
think I can
maybe
slip into
easement
this
to
one?
just drain it out, or were you just coming to see about the variance today?
Yeah, cause that's a driveway, not a drain, that's not easy.
We've not had any discussions on that.
I could see why.
So, yeah, that has not been something we've discussed. Just to go back to the way these were put together is, you have an inlet grate and an outlet pipe. So we're doing forced, infiltration. There is no orifice on those bioretention facilities. So the overflow, the top orifice is regulating that outflow.
Mhm.
To maximize that infiltration in an attempt to minimize our volume output. But, and in the drainage report, if you're looking at the drainage report, you will see that I've included pre-designed for the, schematic playground, and speaking with Kelsey, so that we had an idea of where storage would fall for those and requirements on those. So that's all included in that drainage report at this point. And right now, she has a couple of very small rain garden type areas shown on there.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating that one that you're circling to actually be where most of this goes from playground improvements, and that it will be bigger than what is shown.
Yeah. So,
What was, we matched, you matched events or?
I matched events, yes.
Okay.
We've matched events despite the fact that we've moved a greater area, slightly greater area to that basin A.
So how much?
And that does include with matched events with the change in runoff coefficients in accordance with the new, and with that increased area, so.
You said you had forced infiltration, so look at that. Can we look at the outlet control structure?
I don't know if we had a,
I don't know how to tell.
Yeah, there was one that had that. To the right, I think. Go up, I think it's in the outlet. To the right. Is that your outlet control structure?
Yes, or no, that's typical inlet.
Okay.
Sorry, is,
There it is.
there it is. Yeah, I think I had that one in Shorefish should not be on there. I apologize for that. There's not in Orcos.
okay,
And,
it's just gonna have a great.
sorry, it's been a few.
It's all right.
Been a minute since I looked at this. So I'm confirming in my report that that is not there. Cause
I mean, we had one other project where, we didn't try it out not having an orifice for that.
but I'm sorry, it is, that's the 1 6-inch orifice, so there's forced infiltration in the infiltration trench and in the
Okay.
soil, because there's not an under drain, and then we have 1 6-inch orifice.
Okay,
And then we have orifice control in the top overflow for the 100-year.
okay,
And with all of that included, we match storms in that basin as it sits. The 24-inch was the highest, like the deepest I wanted to go for safety, as well as with the bioretention aspect. It's really pushing it on plants, but you can get that to drain.
Mhm.
Survive.
Any suggestions?
we- Did you have a drawing that showed the basin compared to the playground, just to see if the basin could maybe be? Sounded like the basin couldn't be made any bigger.
I don't have it overlaid, because I don't have CAD from but I can show you. So
I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work.
I'm just gonna walk up here and show you where that goes. Okay, so when you look at that, there is a walkway that goes to some raised garden beds that they're looking to do. That walkway is gonna cross right about here. The playground will go all the way to the end of this existing shelter house. The shelter house is gonna be part of the playground, so it will come straight across here about where that 47.1 shows up there. And then we will run their path along here. This tree is staying and they want to have kind of some gathering area around the tree for group time.
Where's the group time?
Around this tree down here, so they want to do, not necessarily amphitheater, but I'm envisioning probably some stump type stools that they can have small group time with class.
Could the basin be enlarged toward the southwest then?
We could enlarge it a little bit towards the southwest. I was pulling back from that because right now they're also planning on having a trail around that way. And the further I pull that, the steeper we're going to be dealing with
Yeah.
more of a path. So that was my thought process there.
Well, maybe that they may have to forego that path.
Or could you do a small embankment, the path on top of it?
Yeah.
Then, yeah, wash slopes and, I don't know.
And then we can,
Are you at 3-1 now or 4-1 with,
we're at, I report a one.
4-1?
This, if I recall.
I would really be kind of curious to kind of see what more the practical difficulty is here. I mean, outside of it kind of eating into some of the design and that's all I really understood. So like, guess to everyone's main thought is how is this gonna impact the adjoining neighbors? And is it worth giving the variance? And I guess that's what we're really here is to see if we want to. So I mean, are we in a position where maybe if they present more of a practical difficulty, the board would lean one way or the other? Or does the board feel that, you know, it's kind of a design issue that doesn't really permit it? Because we have these more strenuous release rates, we're gonna see this more consistently.
We haven't
I
had,
do think the point of it being a small lot and impact might
Yeah.
not being too significant is and the practical difficulty is where I think a lot of it lies, so.
we haven't had many projects this small trying to meet these critical release rates. So if anything's gonna get waived to me, it's these really small ones.
Yeah.
Where you don't have a lot of space.
That's kind of how I feel. I'm just really curious what the impact would look like if there was an overtopping or something to that effect that didn't handle the news.
I'll look at, definitely will look at flood routing. I'm gonna send this to Carrie to review and.
I guess my thought is I would just hate to deal with drainage complaints and and if we're saying, okay, this is fine, and then we get a drainage complaint, then we have to go back, we back up
Maybe,
our decision. And I don't mind matching storm events at all. That doesn't seem to be a problem. I'm just wondering if it can offset what we're here. Now pushing from the southwest, we're taking it southeast, that wasn't there before is, I guess what my concern is.
so, I'll be honest, when I was originally talking to Kelsey about this, we were going to do some small, like, rain gardens for the treatment up around the, parking itself.
Oh.
And then we ran into the easement issue, and
Yeah,
I still would have preferred to do some small treatment up there. Because like I said, if you're taking the gravel as a impervious surface parking lot, we're not really changing the impervious area in the
Right.
space. And as such, if we could treat that with a small rain garden for quality up front, I think that would be less impactful to the neighbors. This, in my opinion, is gonna be more scary to the neighbors than treating up front because, we're having to release in the back and we're having to release further down. If we could treat with a few small rain gardens purely for quality standpoint and keeping because essentially right now, what we are treating in matching storms is the change in the runoff coefficient. Because we're not increasing the impervious overall. And so we're holding that change to match events, and then we're treating quality. And from an overall picture standpoint on this, yes, there's the standpoint that we've had to add a whole bunch of infrastructure and there's some cost increase, but I also feel like if I live next to this looks a whole lot more imposing and looks like it could cause a drainage issue as opposed to rain gardens that would release, about where that structure 103 is probably, it'd release up there. And release down on property and run across like the whole property as opposed to having a concentrated release at the back end. This is one where the drainage got incredibly more increased complexity because of the utility easement and then the new drainage ordinance. And between those two, it really, looks more imposing than I think it could have. With a simpler design for it.
So. Question with the rain gardens, there are none in there currently, is that?
There's nothing on site currently.
Oh, okay.
So, what about increasing storage by, instead of piping, turning that into kind of a bioswale or something like that? Wouldn't that assist with the treatment and?
We could swale some of that, yes.
Would reduce time concentration.
Yeah,
It would reduce the time of concentration still. We would still have a significant amount of, tension. What I was trying to, because I had to get it all the way back there, I was trying to weigh against what they're looking to do and having those playscapes. And weigh that against where I had to put infrastructure. So I'm running between so running in such a way that they can put raised gardens on both sides and things like that. But that is a possibility.
as I say, they could just turn the raised gardens. Jason to the raised gardens,
Mhm.
since the raised gardens are they just turn it 90 degrees,
Mhm.
seems like it would be. But I'm not, yeah, that's not.
Yeah,
I'm
that's,
not in
I'll be
I
honest,
gave-
the location of those raised gardens are outside of my expertise too. I would have to talk to Carrie and see where, because I know there are some aspects that her and I have had to go back and forth on, because they have specific educational and.
Yeah, I was just trying to
concerns. Yeah, no.
get some more, availability for moving the water and treating along the way.
So,
I don't wanna make this difficult.
right. So a motion to approve the drainage plan meeting the previous standards, but with an evaluation of bioswale and or increasing the size of the detention pond.
Would think so, in an effort to keep the flow to the southeast at pre-existing conditions.
And with the justification that this is a small site.
Yeah.
This does go to the planning commission, yeah.
Should not be
Or is this-
through the thing.
No, this is just all
This is
administrative.
just the site plan review.
I guess before there was a second, planning was on here, and since this is a petition that I'm looking at, I was wondering if we'd let them see if there's any particular question they had for us prior to
The
the
planning permit?
Yeah, if they're on here. Drew, I saw was on earlier, just
Hi, Drew, Sean.
in case they had any questions. And they might be waiting.
Hi, Daniel Brown here. I'm the planner that's going to be handling this petition, and no questions so far.
Okay, cool, thank you. Thanks for letting me make that pause.
Was that motion clear enough?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll go a roll call again. Lee, yea or nay?
Yes,
Ginger,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and audio, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, now next you have a development on one of the lots in the Pinnacle Business Park. So this is the, for an ABB property, business park where, Profile Parkway goes through. See it for you, this area drains to the regional pond on Jonathan Drive. And yeah, this has been the part where we have like very interesting things like contaminated soils and
Mhm.
Yeah,
things like that. We've seen some industrial uses come in here. We have McAllister's property. We'll have a U-Haul development right here. And then this one is for an electrical supply company. So they'll have a building, parking area, and that's all.
Mhm.
So all of these projects require drainage board approval, so that's why you're seeing this, even though it is draining to the regional pond. Katie and Jonathan Smith Design here. Is there anything else you'd like to explain about this project?
No, there's not a whole lot. Yeah, we are here because of the conditional approval that was set for Pinnacle Business Park subdivision. This is like Kelsey mentioned, Stewart Electric. They have been in Bloomington, since the 80s. I have Sean Diltz here directly with Stewart Electric, so if there was anything operational questions, things like that you guys might have. Fairly simple site plan. They've got their building that will house showroom, offices, and then majority of it is going to be storage of the supplies that they provide. Customers can park up towards the front, which would be the north, which is to the left side of this. Employees, contractors can come towards the back side. They have loading docks in the back, so contractors can either back up, load their vehicles, go out that way. Larger trucks can unload. Most of the operations from that perspective will be on that south side. They also plan to have an outdoor storage area for materials that will be fenced in that location. As you guys are well aware, this is in Pinnacle Business Park that has the affected soils. There is a dashed line that's kind of cutting through the parking lot of diagonal. And everything to the south and west of that line are the affected soils. So having done McAllister, trying to keep in mind different things that we need to look at with those affected soils and trying not to be invasive as much as possible with those. So the design kind of reflects that. This is sheet flowing. We do not have any storm structures in here. So this will sheet flow across the parking lot, into the lawn area, into the swale that is designed to convey runoff from these sites. This is, I would say, underutilizing, or we're not even close to exceeding what the pervious surface is allowed for this site. I want to say 70-ish% is what we're allowed, and we're down towards the 50% range for that. So that's what I have on this, but happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
And so, just this, is this the affected soils line here?
The one that's, and we have a hatching on some of this, but it gets confused. Yes, that one that Kelsey has.
Oh.
This one?
Yes.
Exactly. This is
Correct. Nope, not sorry.
this one.
It's this one right, yeah, this one right
Oh, the
here.
dash.
So everything,
Yeah.
yes, on some of the other sheets, it is hashed, but it gets messy to keep that hatch on.
Right.
You know, the line's still there, but not the hatch, not all the hatching. Yeah.
So, there will be some excavation in the affected area. Do you have an environmental company available for overseeing any of that work?
I don't know if they have been hired. It's been suggested that Troy Brisk be involved with that, since they are obviously very, very familiar with this site.
We had hired them, they've done the first phase and
Okay,
Yes, they-
great.
are on board, so.
Interrupt, yeah. And I will say too, speaking with the developer on this site, the EPA is close, if not there, of being done with this site. It's a very I'm probably not using the right words, clean site and everything, the remediation and everything has been really well. It's, I think they're pretty much done, with this site.
As long as we, maintain, the precautions around the affected soils.
Yeah, I mean, the restrictions and things are not going away, but,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
So it looks like we're filling anyways, right?
It's filling over the affected soils,
Yeah.
yes. You might have to strip some of the topsoil
Sure.
away with
Yeah.
that 1 foot, there's a 1 foot cap that's
Okay.
supposed to go all over that.
Mhm.
But it will then be filled. Yeah, we were just trying not to penetrate into that
Right.
at all possible. We were kind of doing the same with our erosion control measures, not putting silt fence, but the core logs and things like that.
But you'll still have a fence through.
Yes,
the affected
yes, there will
areas,
be the fence posts and things like that from a long-term perspective.
so we've had that on some other sites.
Do they have any issues with that? Cause those typically go 3 foot, so.
I think if there's an environmental company, who can oversee that work, if they are excavating into.
When they auger.
Any, yeah, any soil that's removed for the fence post will need to be, disposed of properly.
Okay.
I appreciate not using up all the impervious
Mhm.
allowable areas, so that's great. It helps with our detention.
Yeah,
Ensuring that we
we
have
normally don't
enough
get that.
capacity, so
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Usually, how big can I make my building? And how-
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And this basin, this wasn't designed for the new standards. The
The
regional.
regional pond,
But that's.
Yeah, that's why I appreciate
yeah,
the reduce. It's probably gonna need it.
Well, it's what the standard was at the time. Okay.
now on some other sites, we've had water quality practices based on potential pollutants on the site.
Mhm.
So, for this property, what types of materials will be, loaded and unloaded? Due to the nature of the business, anything like liquid or hazardous?
No, it's just electrical supplies, load centers, lighting, boxes, things like that. So nothing that's liquid or anything industrial.
Just glue for conduit.
Easy glue,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
those types
right.
of things.
Yeah.
But
Wiries.
I wasn't intending on additional water quality practices,
Mhm. Mhm.
but that is an option if we determine it's needed, but.
Well, it's all grass and a grass swale, right?
And I do have proposed on the, I guess it'd be the southern lot there, having a river mulch bed for the landscape area in that area, cause all that runoff from the, parking lot will go that direction, even though it's about 2%, 3% slope in that parking lot. It's not, the velocity is gonna be great, but at least let's put the gravel there, it'll catch it first before it goes on to, the lawn area.
So you put a river gravel edge on it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
shown on the landscape plan. I mean, maybe shown on the SWIP as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's delineated. The next sheet down, it should, yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that is helpful. I understand the intention of having sheet flow, not having to encapsulate things, but we've had issues with erosion. Anytime you have a parking area, that sheet flows into grass. It's very difficult,
Yeah.
so
It tends to concentrate.
it will. It'll find a way. The paving companies are great. I've seen some really nice paving work, but there's always gonna be a low area that it'll find, and so. That's good. We'll review erosion control plan, and that'll be it for this. So, any other questions?
Make a motion for approval of.
Okay, and I'll second.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, I'll second. Okay, so,
Okay.
Lee, your vote, yea or nay?
Yes,
Ginger,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes?
and audio, yes. Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Okay. We have Smith is on here for another project. One is going to be a bit more. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Okay, so we have a rather large church, new parking area proposed in the Sinking Creek watershed. Yeah, this, the last one was kind of easy. This one's gonna be a bit more, complicated and involved. So we were, let's see, we have critical watershed, yeah, great. There are critical watersheds, from the Sinking Creek. And then I can pull, floodplain, you can better see the area screening too. Okay, so this is the Sinking Creek floodplain with the west branch of Sinking Creek right here. This project is being proposed just at the west branch of Sinking Creek.
So is it the property line that runs in the middle, or is it both properties?
So they're separate parcels,
There's a section line, that one's a section line right there. The property line goes right through the middle of the creek.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
So
That's a section line, huh?
we,
On the new demo.
Fourth section.
It just. No, that's fine. I'm just wondering if it's actually. Yeah, if it's actually a representation of the parcel following a section line, or if it's our section. CLSS data, and if so, we need to make it look
A different
different.
color or a different something that doesn't,
I've already got 5 notes.
Okay.
I should write them down.
just today,
Before I start forgetting.
this morning already?
Yeah.
well, here you go, Sharon. I hadn't had those layers turned on. They're orange.
Well, there might be some that just auto generate,
Oh,
so we just need to
Okay.
make sure that they're pointing and pulling the right data.
okay.
So I'll double check,
Okay,
but thank you.
yeah,
Sorry.
so anytime we see a larger development in this watershed, we obviously get concerned. We have an old Christopher Park study that said we need to excavate 390 acre feet of material that's accumulated at this terminal stream sink in this whole area. Of course, it's on church property. And I don't know where to start with that, but we have issues with volumes in this watershed.
So is it all part of the same church?
That's what I was kind of wondering. It's a different church.
Different church. So Trinity
Okay.
Church is on the south side,
Trinity, right,
and
right.
then this is West Side Church. So they
Okay.
were affiliated with Sherwood Oaks.
Okay,
But they are now, I believe, separating more or less from Sherwood Oaks, but it is definitely a different church than the one to the south.
okay. Okay,
But this sinkhole that we're supposed to remove material from is from the other church?
most of the area is owned by Trinity Church.
Okay.
Yeah.
And remind me, so Christopher Burke said material needs to be removed from the,
To alleviate some of the flooding issues and everything that, has, accumulated there, they estimated 390 acre feet material should be, or could be excavated from the terminal.
So when you say,
terminal sinkhole.
Mhm.
when you say flooding issues, would you expand, because I'm not, I guess it sounds like you know a little bit about what's been occurring in this area.
Yeah, I would just, in general, the flooding, basically along Prairie Pike, we have a lot of residential areas, along here.
Yeah, and that's been happening for years. I
Right.
mean, it goes way back to the 90s.
Yeah, that study was done. 2000s,
First.
yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. There's a sidebar, but is there any plans to remove that material, or is that, okay? That's-
that's a later project. Yeah, don't even, I would pursue property buyout, like my priority is like probably property buyout as a first, more cost-effective solution, honestly, which
Sell
is weird to
topsoil?
say. Yeah, I think just the permitting and exploratory work and everything that'd be required to do that large excavation and, of course, property owner permission.
Right?
It'd be a substantial project, a lot of work. 290 acre feet. Yeah, it's a
How
lot.
many acres are in there?
Remember?
Oh, well.
Yeah, okay, okay,
But
okay.
it was a lot of volume issues. I think the main issue is that it just is unpredictable how it drains. There's a series of sinkholes along here that if they start backing up and they overflow and kind of go one into the next. That large event in 2021, Curry Pike was flooded. It's not even within that delineated floodway. And everyone's like, why did Curry Pike flood? And I said, well, there's a sinkhole there.
Yeah.
Series of sinkholes. So it's not gonna get better. But critical watershed release rates, this is where, to me, like, this is where it's really needed to have a large detention area to alleviate some of the flooding that will occur just downstream from it at this sinkhole area. So I'll hand it over to Katie. You want to explain your drainage plan?
Yeah, and kind of going back on the previous petition with the smaller sites, and I would agree, we don't get those too often in the county, but it is difficult to meet in some circumstances, the new release rates in addition to the critical, watershed rates that are also being met. This site being 15, 16 acres, I think this is an idealistic site for when these release rates should be implemented, and it seems to work very, very well. So, yeah, we have, I don't even remember which iteration this plan said it. We've been working with this church for 3 years, so we have had a lot of different designs and parking lots and buildings and everything. And even though, I mean, it's a large farm field right now, and it seems like there's a lot of fall, but when you really get into the dissecting the drainage, there's not a lot of fall on this site. So it was just, it's difficult to get water to go towards the detention pond. But anyway, so this detention pond is sized not only for what we see here, but also future expansion, not just where it says future building to the east of the building, but just overall, if the church does at some point in time want to expand in other ways. I know there's been different conversations. They've been all over the place on what could potentially also go there. So we've incorporated that into the design of this detention pond. I believe they can go up to another 50% impervious surface on the site and still be accommodated within this detention pond. As Kelsey mentioned, we also have a floodplain right adjacent to it. So trying to stay out of that, and that is our intent. We do not intend to touch that floodplain whatsoever. And I would say we are definitely pushing the limits and getting this drained and getting the top pond to drain. Everything to that. It is a fairly shallow pond. I think it's only 2 feet, maybe 3 feet at most, but it is really, really wide. There will be a series of under drains that will be at the bottom of this, in addition to all the bioretention plantings, an outlet control structure. This does not have an orifice, but the top of that outlet control structure is, I think it's not even a foot above the bottom of the pond. So all the low flows will be going through the under drains. Everything else will then be going through the standpipe that's into the detention pond. We've got drainage swales that will be, I guess, wrapping around the west side, and then the south side. We've got some structures in there that will pick up some of that runoff as well. And then on the north side, it will be collecting water that drains, so it doesn't drain across our site into the swale. And then there's a naturally occurring swamp that will carry it down. And then we're still refining this grading, still working with the church to make sure we're meeting everything. They've got a whole committee, so it's been a long process trying to get clear direction from the church itself. The area north of detention pond, that may be where future development is, so there may be redesigning at some point of this swale going across there, but that will of course be analyzed should that ever occur in the future. We are meeting the critical watershed rates. Not only that, we are exceeding, these for the low storms. We have up to 4 CFS. That's the 0 to 10-year storm. Right now, our release rate is at a 1.63, so that will be reduced even from the allowable rates. And then up to the 100-year, we can have, just over 7 CFS, and right now, we're coming in at about 6.5 CFS. So those are being reduced a little bit more. That is all I have. So I will answer questions. And it's a huge pond, huge pond.
Do you know the base flood elevation?
I'm sorry,
Do you know the base flood elevation?
725. I'm recalling that from memory, or an 825. I don't remember what elevation we are here.
We're 824, 822. Yeah, we're at 820.
The 22, I can't.
Yeah, that's
Count
822 right here.
from there.
822, 823.
So by the 823, then at that location. Okay.
Just wondering if you don't have that right now, that's fine. We'll. Sure, Carrie will look at that in the plan review.
Yeah, I don't. I know, I think the outlet pipe is coming out right about at that elevation. Again, if my memory serves me correctly, look at my pond.
You're saying, this pond is accounting for the future building?
Future building and then just in general, future expansion up to 50% of what is shown right now on this plan.
Like parking.
Yeah, they might want additional parking. I know they've talked about putting maybe some outbuildings. I don't know, maybe school in there. I mean, we're talking way out in the
Right,
future. I mean, there's just been so many ideas floating around, on what they could possibly do here. Yeah, I think the base flood is an 823, Kelsey, because we're coming up, I think, 6 inches above that.
Okay.
On an outlet pipe. Yeah.
I appreciate that you're meeting those release rates and even less than some, and also accounting for future development.
Yeah,
That's all,
yeah,
Good stuff.
yes.
yeah. And I say it'll greatly reduce it with just the church. So I mean, that's with future development. So who knows how far out that future development is. So this in theory, we'll be slowing that down even more until that point in time.
So you get your acre feet out of there.
There you go. And that's the point of the release rates. It's not just to mitigate the current development, it's to just mitigate the issues in the watershed in general.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to do. Question about the no orifice in the structure. You did a project that didn't have an orifice. Have you heard back on like how that's working?
Which project was? it?
Library.
The library?
Yeah,
I think everything's working fine at the
it's not
library.
holding water, like.
We had some, problems with our cleanouts or observation things that we had
Okay.
to go back and check.
And this structure is only, 0.75 feet above the bottom. So that's essentially where I would have an orifice.
Yeah.
And we put in a series of under drains in here. So that the idea that it will not hold standing water in there. Because it is only a 2-foot deep pond. So it'd be difficult to have a standpipe and an orifice within that same structure.
So the under drain works kind of like the drain, as long as the medium.
Yeah, and if we had squished this, we're able to make it a smaller footprint, make it taller, then yeah, we would probably have the typical 3 or 4 foot standpipe with a low flow orifice, wherever the water quality volume equivalent was.
So you're building this up? Or building up the embankment here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the drainage plan.
I would second that.
Okay,
Okay, and Lee, your vote, yea or nay?
Yes.
Ginger,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and audio, yes.
I'll send this to Harry for review, unless anything major changes, I wasn't planning on taking this back to you. So.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Katie and Don.
Thank you.
Sorry for the long packet. I did not spend time on a detailed packet for this meeting, so that's why it's 279 pages long. Normally I try to read through things and give you only what you need.
Mhm.
Did not
Well,
spend any
You
time.
did the summary.
I did a one-page memo, not my typical more detailed summary, but
Well, that's good.
I think this be the do moving forward. Okay, so this one, I kind of threw this on the agenda at the last minute, well, the last one as well, pretty last minute, threw it on there, very, different project. So we had in 2021 a minor subdivision, off Thomas Road, so we have, Vernal Pike, Howard Road, I'll pull up a better segment for you. Okay. Okay, so. So this is the Route Quarry. This is Richland Creek, approximate floodway. We're not in a critical drainage area. This is Thomas Road, Vernal Pike. Here. So this is a 3-lot minor subdivision that was done in 2021. They applied for a building permit before the subdivision and built a home. Then they subdivided it into 2 more lots to build 2 more homes. And so we have whole sinkholes top of the hill here and drainage easements going down these swales. This an existing hayfield recently. So we have drainage easements on either side going to this floodway here. The contours, where are they? There they are, okay. So quite a bit of elevation change, see, but we do have easements going down to the floodway here and here. The home is gonna have one, crossing over this drainage easement here. Pull up the plans and you'll see, 24-inch driveway culvert, so they can get onto the lot here, which fairly standard, I usually just administratively
Mhm.
do those for driveway access, common. The difference with this project is that I was expecting a residential home to go in here, but then they decided to do a multi-use structure, so the pole barn to house construction equipment and materials with an apartment above it. So multi-use structure, I'll let planning explain what all happened here, but it went for a commercial site plan because of this, change here. So I was going to ask you just to waive any detention requirements, nor if I get a site plan, I would automatically say requires detention. I was anticipating a residential home going in here for the minor subdivision, which I wasn't gonna require detention for, but now it's a commercial site plan. I asked about what materials would be stored in there. They said things like drywall, trim and maybe some appliances, but they won't be doing any equipment. They won't be, no equipment maintenance. We have storage of hazardous materials in here. And, so I was like, I don't think I need any water quality measures. So I wanted to bring this to you to see if we would need any detention. I said I wasn't about to, because I was expecting a home to go in there with the same impervious surface essentially. And it's discharging directly into this floodplain, so we are limited on space. So.
Chelsea,
Yeah.
I can speak just to the planning process here. So we passed an ordinance allowing for what's called a rural general contractor after we received a lot of, I guess, requests or demand for this type of use. So it's requiring presence of a principal dwelling on the site. And
Okay.
then if they have any outdoor storage of anything related to their general contractor use, it has to be completely screened. In this case, they're going to be putting all of their materials inside. So this is a facility, I think, for value built construction.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have the operator live on site. So that's how this was able to get passed in an agricultural zone.
Okay, thank you for that. So this is not considered home-based business. And that's why it went
It's-
with a site plan.
Yes, one step above home-based business because it's a little bit more intense because they're leaving the site to do their business and then bringing materials back.
Okay. For proposed parking, is there gonna be like a parking lot or like? Like we have cars parked?
Yeah, there's not going to be any retail or public coming to the site. So proposed parking is really just for their own private vehicles. I don't know that they actually have to have a certain number of parking spaces. So I think Daniel's the planner who's taking this on who can clarify for me.
Yes, I checked after 806 and there doesn't seem to be any minimum number of spaces for a general contractor rural. I did request in my note comments back to them that they provide a parking plan with all relevant standards to chapter 806, but there's no minimum parking requirement.
Okay. And yeah, parking lots is something we look at for water quality, detention, but. Again, like this is the footprint I was anticipating for that residence.
Yeah. What are Daniel, do you know the dimension of the building?
Of a building, so the proposed structure is going to be largely storage for a general contracting business, but that little section at the top where it says 1 and 2, that's going to be a 2-bedroom apartment for the operator to live in.
So do you know the outside dimensions of the building?
Those
Before-
should be at the bottom of that very page. There's a little diagram of the building.
Yeah. right there.
Yes, proposed house detail, not the scale.
46 by 100. 60 by 100.
6,000 square feet.
Plus a coach. Is there any, so I'm just thinking future wise, say these people sell it and move out and somebody else comes in. Is there any restrictions on who could move into this sort of structure? Only asking because, there may not be water quality concerns for this tenant, but a future tenant may be doing something different.
Good point.
So the use requires an affidavit that the operator, owner of the parcel live on site. If they do change hands and they change business models, they'd still have to meet a general contractor use. If they changed their use or did something different, they would probably have to come back for further planning approvals. Right now, they're only doing inside storage, and I stress that because if anyone came in or we received a complaint for outdoor storage of materials, then it would be a different review that we'd be going through. So this is specific to the use that they're doing indoor storage.
So if another contractor buys this and stores different materials inside, that wouldn't trigger a site plan review again. They could sell it and store different things in there, without us really being involved.
That is correct.
So we're worried about, likely they're gonna have paint and mineral spirits and stuff, I would think, guys that do drywall sometimes paint.
Well, I had, well.
You've got a lawnmower and gasoline, so what kind of materials are we
Mhm.
worried about storing? And
Yeah, so it could never become like a repair shop or.
or be more like
I was
like
just
car
thinking,
auto repair.
that's what I
where
was
it's got oil
wondering, is
change.
it, like, what happens if it switches hands and becomes a, auto repair shop or something like that? Is that still general contractor or no? That would
That
be,
doesn't sound like general
That'd be a
contractor,
different
that
use,
sounds like
right?
auto repair.
Yeah, but just like
Yes, that would
we,
be considered a change of use, and if it is a change of use, it would likely come back to us for planning approval and as well as a another site plan review.
Yeah.
okay.
I did ask them about, storing liquids, hazardous materials. A couple cans of paint like a regular homeowner would have,
Yeah.
isn't something we're gonna regulate, but if they have large quantities of paint, mineral spirits, or other substances that if exposed to stormwater would cause issue or be easily released if there was a spill.
Or we'd be 2 feet above floodway, right?
Yeah. The BFE 737. Yeah,
744, so they're up another 7 feet.
yeah, we're gonna build up with that here
Okay,
for,
and their septic needs to be out of it, so,
yeah.
so it's like a mega house, right?
Yeah. I mean,
mean,
6,000 square feet doesn't surprise me nowadays.
Well, no, you're right. Wow. Yes. Well,
10,000 square feet, yeah, I mean, like.
yeah, but I mean, you could almost say
6,000 is large.
it's the runoff from a house.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. Because we do have 4,000 square feet as a threshold
For land disturbance?
for new impervious. The ordinance says we can require detention really for any new development, doesn't require certain impervious surface. But to me, this one came as a surprise to me, and I was just anticipating a home going in here. So as long as there's not a risk of pollutants,
And this isn't a critical watershed.
it's not a critical watershed, just because they have spent a lot of time going through design on this. Yeah, from this structure here, I mean, the floodplain is right here.
Yeah,
So,
so we wouldn't have to worry about drainage components. Because we don't, there's no
But
neighbor
that's-
in our
that's-
backyard, there's easements for all the
yes.
drains that go through the old field.
It's all, yeah, all drainage easement. I mean, there are like flooding concerns maybe in general for the stream itself, but not top priority.
Vernal Pike floods right there all the time.
Yes, it
And,
does.
and is all ripped up. And they have recently put a very shallow trench along there, but it kind of ends, just fades away, probably a little past where the structure is.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of surprised that we would put this much impervious surface in this area, given that it does flood 3 or 4 times a year. I don't know what kind of drainage is along Thomas Road there, but it just all seems to empty out onto Vernal Pike and then run kind of west along Vernal Pike.
You're absolutely right. Vernal Pike, a lot of sections of roadway are in the floodplain. We are gonna pave this section as well, so. I don't want to speak for highway, but.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Some drainage maintenance, in the area. We did pave, Vernal farther south. But there are sections of roadway that it's going to flood unless we raise the road 5 feet. And this section in particular, there's a runaround for people who live in the area to take an alternate route if needed, which we have other portions of roads in floodplain that people don't have any way out of their homes if it does flood. So this would rank lower, in my opinion, on, you know, priorities for raising a roadway out of the floodplain. From what I can tell, at least, you know, people living here can go up Thomas Road if it is overtopped.
Yes, people who live to the west, like
Mhm.
Loudon Road, if people are trying to take Loudon Road, that
Yeah,
is a very inadequate road, really
Okay.
rather dangerous.
okay.
Um,
Really,
It-
that's a high.
It has no shoulders and the trees come right up to the road. And there's a place where the road is kind of caving in.
Oh, we've had some sinkhole issues out there before. If there's one that looks like it's getting worse, please let me know.
Okay, I can tell you right where it is.
Sure.
And yes, I've seen several other sinkholes open up sorry, my farm is right on Loudon Road there, on the corner of Loudon and Howard.
Okay,
And we've had a lot of new sinkholes open up in there.
okay. I bet.
And actually, I've seen a sinkhole open up in that, well, it may be more toward the radio towers.
Okay. If there's sinkholes along the roadway, either in the right of way or along the road, yeah, please let me know. You can send me a message. I can go out there and just drive along and look to make sure that everything is good or any previous fixes we've done have held.
Well, if you want to look, about 15 years ago, Highway came along and painted an arrow pointing at it.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
all that ever happened.
Sure, okay.
And it's still there?
I think it is. I haven't.
It's good paint. Well, I guess a house could be built, I mean, someone could build a house just like this.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to equate it to something that,
yeah. Like I said, 6,000 square feet didn't initially like surprise me. It would be a large house. I mean, but I've seen houses, you know, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 square feet. And we haven't really set a threshold for residential development on what's too much for residential.
Mhm.
We have 4,000 square feet for commercial properties as a definite threshold, or anything smaller if we determine it's needed, but residential, we've never set that. I had
we
the
have
one.
impervious, like on a lot, we've got a limit to how much impervious surface. Even for residential, right?
Planning department, we'll have that in the new
Yeah.
CDO. Yeah. Yeah.
I make a motion to approve. I
Okay,
don't think there's anything that we
Yeah,
Okay,
have any reason to do anything
yeah, I
different.
agree.
good.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, and then
I'm
Lee,
sorry.
you and I,
I'm sorry,
ahead.
I didn't catch what the motion was.
Oh, just to approve, yeah, just to
The
approve
site plan
the site plan.
as presented.
as is.
Yeah.
But-
I think I better abstain on this one.
Okay, okay, that's great. Okay, Ginger?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
And audio says yes. Okay.
One extension.
One abstention, yes.
And I will, look in the area at other drainage issues, sinkholes.
Yeah, you can see from the Explorer the amount of sinkholes in the area, but this
Mhm.
particular lot doesn't seem to have as much there's.
Yeah, it's farther up the hill.
Yeah, it's farther up the hill, right? Yeah, it seems to be the base of the formation, so.
I have had a question, thinking about it. People have asked about, underground excavation from the quarry. And anyone know about
Underground
subsurface
mining?
mining and any
For
potential?
dimension, is that dimension stuff?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uh,
and there's supposedly opening up another quarry just a little east of this property.
okay. So they're
Or at least-
expanding operations farther north?
Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, the quarry had, well, basically, up until probably 15, 20 years ago, this whole area was on wells. And the quarry destroyed pretty much everyone's well except for ours. So they've had to bring in city water from Bloomfield.
Oh,
That's interesting.
wow,
There's been a lot of problems from the quarry.
Yeah.
You know,
right, with their dewatering.
I guess I don't really know much about what quarries do other than blast all the time and cause a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But the question is, are they doing, underground mining?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I know that I've seen them move into doing that for a short distance, but I don't know how far back they're going. I really don't know. I can look into that though.
They give tours. I don't know to who, but.
You?
They actually, they own a whole lot of the mineral rights in the area.
So, I know some government staff have been allowed to go on tours there. I did do a surface tour there and they said they could go underground and I politely declined at the time. But maybe in the future. But, so I do know that there was subsurface.
Yeah, I
To some
know some of the
extent.
quarries in that area have been doing that, or
Okay.
hit a road or something and when they start
Mhm.
going under instead of.
So they could, I mean, come across wells. Or,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if they're shallow wells, probably.
I mean, it's this a lot
Okay.
of work right now.
okay.
Against it, just. We're being asked to inform on
Okay,
quarry interactions with drinking water.
interesting. Well. I've had some questions in the past on this and my program. You know, I deal with surface water mostly, and so all the subsurface groundwater issue. I mean, you can either ask the state IDEM, the Drinking Water Act regulations, or go to the Corps themselves to get information on what they're doing.
I was gonna say, for water rights issues where they're dewatering the wells, that's a DNR.
DNR, yeah, okay.
DNR Division of Water,
Mhm.
they have the water rights and use section, so
Okay,
if someone comes up against a well that no longer produces and they believe it's because of the nearby quarry, they should contact the
okay.
DNR Division of Water.
But any other issues that could arise on the surface from the subsurface mining, like new sinkholes or things like that, what? This is a very large question that I don't know if we would ever have to run into this, but been proposed, what if that were to happen, would the drainage board be involved with something like that when we start getting into mining? Or we can just think on that and
Yeah.
worry about it another day.
Yeah, I would wait till the specific issue arises.
Sure,
And then we can
Okay.
determine whether we need to address it or.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
And I can say from the homeowners in the area, that's
That's a good approach.
probably unnerving because you don't want to wait till disaster happens for
Yeah.
Yeah.
you to act on it, but.
Yeah, well, we did put a well in, a separate well for the farm that only works intermittently.
Hmm.
Because I guess that when they blast, the limestone fissures fill in with dust and at times block access to the well, is what I've been told.
So
So it
DNR,
flushes out or something?
I guess.
Huh.
It's not trustworthy, so we do all our irrigation from our well across Loudon Road up on the ridge.
sounds like the Department of Natural Resources,
Division of Water,
Division of Water.
yeah, or I'd reach out to them,
Mhm.
absolutely,
Is that Mark Bash in particular?
yeah.
Is
Mark
the
Bash.
contact person?
Okay, for their general email, the water inquiry email.
Yeah.
We'll direct it to the right
See
person.
there, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Fascinating.
all right. Well, thank you, Lee. Glad you could join us, Mochi.
Sure.
Are we gonna go over this?
Sorry, I was gonna end things. Sorry, no, but I do need to talk about a little bit, planning department course chapter. Sorry, I was winding down. Sorry for staying on. I do want to go over, the planning department's, proposed, development ordinance course chapter. There's a lot of overlap, and we decided to have two separate chapters, one for the planning department and then the one in our stormwater ordinance. The one in the stormwater ordinance, I see as very focused on water quality, land disturbing activities in and around sinkholes and being able to protect them. And then planning comes in with, regulations for buildable area, and, land use, decisions. So the ordinances are very similar, they mirror each other, and right now, with our drainage ordinance, in place, we're seeing discrepancies on plats, because we're in this in-between phase, so we hope to maybe, talking about potentially, getting things on the same page in terms of the drainage, the buffers around the sinkholes. But I'm gonna maybe turn it over to planning, if you could, explain what you're proposing in the new cards chapter.
Sure. And I wanted to circle back to just the discussion about impervious cover for future. We are going to be having impervious cover maximums by zone. And just to give you an idea of what we're thinking, on, say, since you guys are all familiar with the Southern Meadows subdivision, I'll use that as an example. Those lots are about 0.21 acres in lot size. And what we're proposing is that would allow them to have 60% of the lot size, or 5,500 square feet of impervious cover. That would count driveways, pools, buildings, all of that would count. And then whichever is less. If it's in a critical watershed area, we bump it down to 50% or 4,500 square feet, whichever is less. So I'm interested in, continuing to work with the stormwater team on how to best situate some of these impervious cover maximums, and happy to have that as a separate discussion for another time. But it is something that I can see us needing a little bit of support from other departments and other boards, because I think that a lot of people will maybe not appreciate this maximum because it is new and it's a lot more strict than what we have currently. So the discussion today of the karst ordinance, Tammy is also online. She's the assistant director. And she's been working with some of the stakeholders that we have in our just context that we have. And what we've discussed so far is moving towards having a 50-foot SCA. That seems to be getting some support at the planning commission level, but it could still, be part of the discussion that we keep it at 25 feet. From a planning perspective, if we change it from 25 feet to 50 feet, we're going to be making properties possibly non-conforming, even if they don't take any action for developing the property. That could trigger more need for variances. And so that's where I kind of want to be clear with the drainage board's authority to have the 50 feet. It's not my intent, unless it's helpful for people, to have them go through drainage board for the same reason, then go through the BZA or the Board of Zoning Appeals for the exact same reason. And I don't necessarily want to be in a situation where drainage board is given their approval and then BZA denies it, or vice versa. That would, people might It would just cause a little bit of confusion, I think, for the public. But that being said, right now we have it at 50 feet under the draft, under section 6. It's pretty similar to Kelsey's ordinance, but we've taken out some of the discussions about filling in a sinkhole. That has gone over to stormwater only. So emergence of new sinkholes, you'll see under section 7, it says all newly emerging sinkholes are subject to stormwater ordinance. So we're pointing people instead to go to stormwater instead of having them come to planning. Tammy, did you have anything else you wanted to add about the CARS chapter so far? Oh, you know what? Tammy's not on. I'm sorry. Tammy's here, but she just got here. I'll also say for applicability for this ordinance, so it's not only development, new development, existing development, it's also going to apply to logging sites. So whenever people are wanting to build new logging roads or, sometimes people get a stormwater grading permit, if they're going to be building anything that constitutes a driveway or road through a sinkhole, we would be saying that they are not able to do that. So that's also applicable to this chapter.
Is that the overview? I have a 10 o'clock meeting. I've
Okay.
been
So
trying
sorry.
to, no, this is important. There's no way I'm gonna go ahead and free my entire schedule up for this particular conversation. We didn't really vote on the stormwater ordinance. We made recommendations. They did have that 50-foot. I remember having this discussion with the board a couple of different times. We did not drill into it as it kind of came to us for that final draft, which kind of makes sense because they dumped the whole ordinance on us, and we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of pages. And as that proceeded, actually, the Stormwater Management Board didn't get to vote either. So I never really officially got to express my opinion being on the Stormwater Management Board, which is defined by our state legislation. It's the executive office and the county surveyor. So I've been a little frustrated, to say the least, and wouldn't have necessarily supported the 50-foot conservancy area in the stormwater ordinance because I just don't think we're going about it the right way. I do understand that there is a good possibility to mitigate pollutants in this and that, but we're also then dipping into other areas of county government that overlap pretty significantly, where like that could then go into buildable way, their buildable land minimums. There's a bunch of different things. Now, also that now kicks a bunch of different as built out structures into non-compliance measures. So we batted this around at the plat committee recently where like there's this really nice garage and now they fall within this 50-foot stormwater ordinance. And, luckily we're not necessarily drilling in super tough on these individuals, but they just wanted to do some basic kind of, changes on their property. And like now we're talking about, is their garage encroaching, and from what I understand from the previous conversation, Jason, is that Prothy, he sent us an email saying, the stability of a sinkhole at 25 is adequate. And then we've gotten to that conversation about what we expanded. Also, I really don't have a large concern of the idea of water going uphill, into these, because we're just buffering them out. And I basically just did a really simple analysis here on a conservancy area that we're kind of outlining. And I try to do my most conservative approach. If we add the 25-foot, it's already at like a 0.3 acres. And if we add that 25, we're talking about 0.5 acres of property. Now, they're asking us for a recommendation of what we think. And it's like, are we really talking about a drainage, a pollutant, a mitigation concern, or a stability concern? Is the drainage board really feel strong enough to be in a position to provide a recommendation if we're not seeing a huge significant issue with the way it's doing drainage? we're already got a stormwater ordinance that's at 50. I feel like if we have a strong, and this is my opinion, a belief that doubling that does significantly mitigate certain pollutants and other concerns, we have that in stormwater. They're asking us for a planning recommendation, and I personally feel like that's more in like a stability. Also, the way that we look at sinkholes is pretty interesting, and I'm a huge environmental advocacy, or advocate, sorry. As you can see, I'm wanting to make sure I make that point, but, we don't even know if some of these conservancy areas are sinkholes. We just look at, close contours, and then we have them delineated. Then all the burden goes back onto the property owner to disprove that. Or, they'll have to come back here for a waiver if they want to do any improvements on their property. I really think the stormwater ordinance should have took a stronger look and really came to a better determination before, we're looking to just align these ordinances. It doesn't make it any easier to administrate. I completely understand that position, but I'm gonna speak out about it during the planning commission process, and I don't get a vote, I get to voice my feelings on the matter here. So, thank you.
So can I ask some
Absolutely.
questions? So it sounds like you're looking at it from purely a adaptability standpoint. The concern is that it's gonna be overly burdensome on communities that already have in place these structures, or those that want to put structures in, and that it's not a stability issue, and that's where you're against it.
Right, I really, I haven't seen enough information to drive this point that we're fixing a problem that exists. There's certain cases, but like, if we're looking at providing a recommendation from what I've always fought to make sure that have a huge position in some of these, processes, the drainage board, because it's very important. And, to make a large recommendation. And it's kind of, in this opinion, I think the lay of the land matters a lot, and the one size fits all approach is a bit difficult. And we already have something in place where they could go to variances, and they could kind of already seek some relief, but like, is doubling it really necessary? And then also, it's a little uncertain of how the process to get waivers would even kind of happen. And I just, like I said, there's a lot of layers, and this is pretty impactful. And I understand just kind of focusing on what we're here to focus on, but this is my time to kind of share my thoughts on it. And if they could quantify the need to really expand this, then absolutely. But like, it's just, I think we can deal with compound sinkholes differently. I think we could be more, have more specification in our ordinance to address real concerns. So that's my thought.
Yeah, and I think we brought up some of the concerns of different. If the ground sloped away from the rim of the sinkhole, it doesn't make sense to necessarily have a 15-foot buffer, but I think we agreed that it, from a, administrative point of view, it would be much less burdensome on trying to administer program like that. I think that's where that came in. So, increasing the amount of administration on a program like that has to be weighted with that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was a 50-foot, wasn't that proposed by Twain to begin with?
No,
I've never been,
that was in the stormwater ordinance.
it came, I thought, planning. I thought that was, because I was never into.
Yes, we did. We talked with the ordinance review committee, and that was one of the things that came up. And we did talk to you all as a stormwater board to say what is the right width, because as part of updating the county development ordinance, one of our responsibilities is if we're making anything more strict, we typically have to have some backing of evidence as to why it would be necessary to make it more strict. So we look to you all to be our experts on the right delineation. And so that's why we propose that to you all. So now this ordinance would be in line with what you all have adopted.
I don't think we've ever made a recommendation. I think the conversation just kind of fizzled out and we moved forward, just to be very clear.
That's kind of how I remember it.
Yeah, because Dave talked about how we really have to quantify this to make a substantial change to existing ordinance. They adopted a new stormwater ordinance without that provision, so it's a new provision, so it's not changing an existing ordinance. So this, I think that is the rub there. Without Dave here, I'm not gonna say, that's kind of my opinion. And so this is now changing an existing ordinance. And when we talked about that, we didn't really, I think, have enough information or evidence to really render any type of recommendation. So again, that's why I'm saying we're being put into this position to make a recommendation or not. Personally, I would move this on to the plan commission. If the board doesn't see a significant, issue with kind of some of our concerns, we don't have to say no or yes, but I think without having good substantial data that, it's just our opinion.
Well, we did do some research. There was.
We did, well, yes.
Yeah, there was
Please.
some research evidence that suggested that 50 foot, even 100 foot is actually the more sufficient border, but we decided 100 foot was extremely overburdensome, and so that wasn't even a consideration, but there was research backing this.
No.
We started the
Yeah.
discussions.
Well, that's where,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And that's why I'm kind of a little indifferent. It's like, is it like, and how much is what my question.
Yeah, we didn't ever do we didn't do a structural stability assessment of
No.
sinkholes because that's outside our job here, right?
Right.
So we didn't do that, but that could be done as well. I don't know if the 50 foot would
Well, I think
incorporate
this-
that. I think that might be a good way to determine is to do that research.
I guess my real point
Assess.
is the drainage board looking to make a recommendation where the plan commission is going to weigh
Right.
that into their decision process?
So
That's my,
I-
so I absolutely
Yeah.
agree with everything you say, and my real question has always been is how much of a difference are we making it by these buff increases? And then also we're buffering, so we're talking about downhill as well. So again,
Yeah, that's been our advice.
so like, I know when I'm kind of in over water, pun intended, and I wouldn't really try to get behind this in my own expertise or understanding of the matter. So I'll show my ignorance too, because I feel like when it comes from the experts that, it's something I always look to hang my hat on, so.
So, Jackie?
Thanks. So what I'm hopefully, what I'm hoping to get out of the discussion with the drainage board is, I think I would like to understand, maybe from your perspective, two things. One is if someone is proposing, let's say, a driveway or has a driveway through a 26 feet away from a sinkhole rim. Now the standard is 50 feet. Do you have a sense of the process that you would like to see that person go through to make improvements to that driveway? I think it makes a lot of sense to start with the drainage board and then to, if there's a recommendation, maybe come back to the planning department and we can make that as like a part of the variance process, or do you think that there could be, and I'll have to talk to our legal department, if you guys want to take some stuff, let's say like roads, if it's under the stormwater ordinance, we can take it out of ours, so it doesn't have to be that we have both duplicate language there. If you think you can administer and appropriately evaluate and provide approvals for development in that 50 foot, so they don't have to come to planning as well. And then the other thing I wouldn't mind just getting related to that, just getting your viewpoint on is section 6 under C, which is the setbacks and use restrictions. We haven't looked at this in a while, but I think it's always a nice perspective to just remind ourselves, what is it that we're trying to protect against? What is it that we don't want to see within a sinkhole conservancy area, no matter what width? You know, is this still appropriate? So number one, no new construction of the following shall be permitted within the SCA: commercial or industrial structures, private drive streets, highways, storage yards or parking lots for materials, residential structures, accessory structures, public, semi-public and office facilities, swimming pool, stormwater detention features not approved by the drainage board. So is there edits that need to be made to this list? Additions, removals of things? I know that I'll have to update number 2 below as well, because I think the state allows septic systems to be 25 feet now, and we cannot be more strict than the state. But otherwise, are there things missing that you would like to see particularly buffered from the sinkhole conservancy area, or things that you think, if in your ordinance, we should take out of the planning ordinance and just deal with it at the drainage board level?
I know I took up a lot of the oxygen in the room, but like kind of listening to like removing one and then streamlining that process and then allowing the experts to really make that determination is something that, you know, I'd lean more towards than, you know, having a BZA process every time and looking for a variance. Because we are a group of geologists, engineers, conservationists, you know, like, I'm just saying that, you know, just hearing that, you know.
The only time the BZA would be involved, if it were only in the stormwater ordinance, is if we have a plat that doesn't meet buildable area requirements or something. I could see that.
Right.
But otherwise it'd be treated like a drainage easement where it's just drainage board level and planning doesn't get involved with drainage easement waivers. The other thought I have is that we also have a provision in the stormwater ordinance to either you have the 50-foot buffer around the largest closed contour, or we can delineate that sinkhole watershed area. Now,
Should be a
I
cost
almost-
to- Or, sorry, but I jumped in. I'm just kind of curious how that would work. Be done.
so I wonder if planning can say maintain that 25 feet, because otherwise you would be looking at justifying making it more stringent based on structural or whatever else, but we're looking at in terms of land disturbing activity, water quality, around the sinkhole. So if they can just have that 25 feet and not change things, they wouldn't have their non-conforming issues. But we still have ours, and anything from that 25 to 50 feet would only require drainage board approval if they wanted to encroach on that SCA. And that way, if we do delineate a sinkhole drainage area that has less than a 50-foot buffer on one side of it, which is possible, they wouldn't also require BZA approval. They would just have their 25 feet.
I think that's a good compromise. I mean, it sounds like we've already nailed out a process for us.
Mhm.
For stormwater and drainage and disturbance, so.
Chelsea, without having your ordinance pulled up, the way it's written, you're saying is that it's automatically a 50-foot karst conservancy area unless they delineate the drainage area. Is that something that an individual would provide you with a report, sort of like we do now with the flood elevation extent?
I would have to approve it, and I haven't determined if that would go to drainage board or not, but,
Okay.
either I would do it or have someone do it for me, or
What happened to us getting one created?
I have a contract, an on-call contract with Jason now.
An on-call contract, but not a.
With an ability to, have a task order for project proposals, so we have a not to exceed amount of $40,000 for 2024. I haven't talked to him about it yet, but mentioned to him, having that as part of the contract with him, if he can get that started.
Because we were talking about making it overlay. So that
Yes.
It's just obvious, easy for
Mhm.
people to grab that information and.
Yeah.
And then do what they needed to do.
Yes, that would be the goal. So if planning did have a 50-foot buffer, then any work we do on that would require some type of variance or ordinance modification in the future for planning because, yeah,
Whereas if they maintain that 25, then it might not cause as much an issue. Because it would still have to maintain that 25-foot buffer.
It'd leave things kind of status quo, I guess, and allow us to kind of look at things as they come in and potentially look at a different way of really trying to, address our concerns, but not put any other undue burden on property owners. And, I think the last case is a good example of the potential practical difficulties we might extend on folks and,
well,
not saying that that wasn't worth a conversation, but at least those are conversations now. Because I think when it gets into the planning ordinance, it's just, it's a whole different vehicle.
Jackie, what's your timeline for this?
So we have our public hearing on September 24th. From there, it's going to undergo any edits that, comments made by the public. The Plan Commission has to review those and ask our staff to go ahead and incorporate any of those changes they agree on. And then it goes to the commissioners. So we're looking at probably at this point a November, December timeline.
Okay.
I think I really appreciate just kind of summarizing some of the information here about maybe taking out some of the language that's duplicative in the stormwater ordinance and just having people that maybe are going through a plating process and don't have enough buildable area, that could be held, assisted with planning process in addition to stormwater board, but otherwise try not to duplicate every process for people within 25 and 50 feet. And then it sounds like the research that was done, and Ginger can correct me if I'm wrong, it was more so based on stormwater quality benefits from a larger buffer, but not necessarily structural integrity. So for planning to increase it, it may be that we don't have enough research at this time for structural integrity for moving it to 50 feet. And then in 2025, we may have a study done by Jason Crothy. And if that's the case, we don't want to make multiple changes on people to, I guess, move the carpet from underneath if it's ultimately going to be a better end goal to.
Do you need us to formally vote to recommend certain policy or think we've?
No, I think that, I think that just generally speaking, I can take some of these comments forward. I do think that if there is still support for the 50 feet, that it will just be something that, we'll say we did take it to the drainage board and, if there's still support from the drainage board members that want to see it at 50 feet, I'm not saying it has to be a majority of members, but just any of the members think that it needs to be 50 feet across the board. It would be nice to have those folks at the hearing on the 24th if they can make it, or shoot me an email or something so that I can have kind of a tally going, because there'll be people on both sides and they'll be weighing heavily, I think, those on drainage board and what their recommendations are.
Happy to discuss as well. And yeah, I can be there to discuss everything. I think a lot of it's like administrative, how we implement it, which I'm happy to continue discussing that with you as well.
Yeah. And, yeah. Is it does this evidence need to be compiled?
Right now it just lives in our meeting minutes, and I've might have like the exhibits, example studies just in a folder in my network drive, but
Right, right,
not attached as an exhibit to the ordinance itself,
right.
so.
So,
I guess one just notable thing is that we are, planning is kind of tracking potential amendments to bring forward. So this could maybe go on one of their like lists to look for. So, you know, it's on the radar and, you know, if it seems necessary to, you know, change it, then, you know, they hopefully will be tracking it and then recommend it and go through that process again and then maybe come down back. Sorry, we're downstairs. Maybe come back to the drainage board for a formal recommendation. But if the drainage board wants to make one, please, by all means, I completely understand, you know, kind of where people kind of focuses on, and I'm completely just trying to make the room light. So if people feel like I'm out, you know, a little over the top, then that's fine. But it's just something I'm pretty passionate about, that we move forward in a direction where we're really focused on on what is occurring, like a results driven type effort where we're really kind of putting in the areas in a conservancy area that are truly needed to be there, not just doubling a buffer. And so it goes back to like, where's all that information for me to get behind?
Okay. Yeah. This is gathering of the evidence and, because, well, and I know Kelsey, you've had conversations with the Karst organization.
Oh, yeah. I picked that up.
And, I wonder if they would be a good resource. Saying, okay, we're looking for studies about what is the correct buffer to have for a water quality standpoint. And then.
Or from a stability standpoint.
Or, yes, any of the other issues associated with the sinkhole. And then make that be the evidence or part of the evidence and results-based decision. Because, I was just doing some on my own and, you know, I was hearing the same thing about, 100 foot really should be, you know, and we came back from that. But I don't have that documented.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and so, so currently in the drainage ordinance, do we have 50 foot in there now? Okay.
Yes,
Yep, but we have the delineation.
Option.
with the option, right, and that's what my fear is if
Because
it's
I'm thinking,
not,
I express my opinion.
okay.
So, yeah. And I am, you know, I understand both the implementation of that, the impacts that could be, and, so, but I'm willing to go with the board's decision if we need to change that.
If you have anything you want to put an email to me, I can consider that before the hearing and then adoption in November. We might have one more meeting in October. We could give some last comments. But
Yeah. Okay. And, so September 24th was the next hearing. Unfortunately, I will be traveling then, so but I should provide whatever I can come up with.
Okay. All right.
And so just in the straw poll, Bill, 25 foot,
Yes,
25 foot?
Yeah, I think leaving
but I don't have.
things, I think we can improve, and I think we need to improve kind of, you know, in a way that's more focused, that really favors like the lay of the land, you know, and that's the best I can say. I know it's gonna take effort on the county, but that will also help to relieve some of the cost on the property owner if we have a better way of moving forward, because if not, they just have to go through a process of disproving everything and then it still might fall to a discretionary, or I shouldn't say discretionary, but it might still fall to a board making a determination. And that could be multiple boards in this instance.
Mhm. Ginger, any,
I'm in favor of creating our areas
Yeah.
that then
well, okay,
truly
Parcels.
define the appropriate areas.
drainage areas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the best route forward, because then it really does relieve that overburden for a person having to
Right.
do the delineation themselves if they really want to build in that area, and it's more defined and.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm for.
Okay, okay.
I'm working on it.
Yep.
I'm also working on an MOU with the Cars Conservancy for potential data sharing.
Mhm.
So hopefully by the end of this year, we can have something implemented, but I haven't heard back from Dave Schilling yet. I sent it to him. So I just need to schedule a meeting with him and talk seriously about what it will look like.
Yeah.
So that'll help with reviews as well.
And I like the drainage area idea.
Okay. I can convey
Yeah.
that to,
We've got
A little more,
Planning.
something like that.
Okay,
the other items can be emailed, so
okay.
it's been a long meeting. Thank you all for.
to adjourn.
I second that motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. This is your recycling time.
Mhm.